Someone who was raised as a Jehovah's Witness asked me a couple questions, and they wanted me to explain to them the difference between what the Jehovah's Witnesses teach compared to what the Bible teaches. And primarily, there's just two primary issues. There's a lot of subsequent issues, a lot of other stuff, but it comes down to the same two problems that every single cult has. Every cult that pretends to be Christian, Roman Catholicism, Mormonism, the Rosicrucians, you name it, all of these have the same two issues. They have a fake Jesus and they have a fake gospel. Now, immediately when people hear me say something about another religion having a fake Jesus, they get up in arms, they get really angry, they try to fight it. They try to defend somehow that all of these different Jesuses are somehow the same Jesus. And I want to show you guys why that's not the case. Why the Bible teaches a very specific Jesus, and then all these religions teach something completely different about Jesus that completely alters him so that it's not at all possible to be the same Jesus. In the 1800s, there was a guy named Charles Taze Russell. And Charles, he did not like the concept of hell, and he did not like the idea that Jesus was God. So he kind of founded something that was referred to as the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. This is what led to the creation of the Jehovah's Witnesses. The Watchtower essentially became their prophet, for lack of a better term, where they have made several prophecies claiming them to be from God. Most of these have proven to be completely and totally false. Now, if you were to check Deuteronomy 18, it says that if a prophet has even one single false prophecy, then that is not a prophet of God, that is a prophet of the devil. Keep that in mind for basically every cult, because they always have prophecies that never come true. For example, I'm not going to give you specific years because there's been many of them, but the Jehovah's Witnesses has said that Jesus' second coming is going to be this year. Oh, it didn't happen? This year. Oh, it didn't happen? This year. This year. This year. They've done it many, many times, and this is all well documented out there for any person who's going to try to claim that I'm making stuff up. This is well documented, easy to find, just a little bit of research. So on that point, it shows that they are a false prophet. It shows that they are not actually receiving anything from God. The Jehovah's Witnesses use something called the New World Translation. This is their version of the Bible. It was primarily constructed by 5 different men, none of whom had any background education in Greek or Hebrew, and actually whenever they were tested on it, they all failed a kindergarten level literacy test in Greek. These guys literally did not translate the Bible, they rewrote the Bible. So if you watched yesterday's video on whether or not God was created, we brought up John 1:1. We're going to do that again today. But we're just going to compare what a real Bible says compared to their Bibles. In a real Bible, John 1:1 says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God, and all things were created through him. And apart from him, nothing that has been made was made." Meaning Jesus created literally everything. Now the Jehovah's Witnesses, they add an article at 2 points. They add a and other. So in the Jehovah's Witnesses Bible, in the New World Translation, it says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was a God. He was in the beginning with God, and through him all other things were made." That's different. Now, if you ask them on this and you say like, "Hey, why does it say a God? Because you guys only believe in one God." "Oh yeah, we only believe in one God, Jehovah." "Okay, then why does it say a God?" See, what the Jehovah's Witnesses actually teach and actually believe is that Jesus is not God. Jesus is the first and greatest creation of Jehovah God. They teach that he is Michael the Archangel, that whenever he came to earth, he took on the name Jesus. Then whenever he died, he did not have an actual resurrection. It was purely spiritual. They teach that God destroyed his body and resurrected a spirit. And this spirit, whenever he ascended back to heaven, that spirit became once again Michael the Archangel. This gets a little bit confusing because it's very nonsensical. See, you have Jesus many, many times calling himself by the name of God, calling himself Yahweh. Of course, it's translated into Greek, and that name is Ego Eimi. He calls himself the great I Am many times. In fact, that is the only reason why he was ever crucified, is because he consistently called himself by the name of God. He called himself equal to God. He said that him and the Father are one. Jesus consistently claimed that he was God. Upon the moment of his trial, whenever they arrested him, they were trying to pin any accusation to him they could. They were unable to. This is in Mark 14, in verse 62. They ask him directly, failing to get any accusation to actually stick. So they say, "Are you the Christ?" And Jesus says, "Ego eimi, I am. And you shall see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power, coming on the clouds of heaven." That was a reference back to the book of Daniel talking about the Messiah, at which point the high priest turns, tears his clothing, and yells, "What further need do we have for witnesses? You've heard the blasphemy for yourself." So what is blasphemy? Well, if you called yourself by the name of God, that is blasphemy. And that is why Jesus was crucified, because he called himself God. Now, the Jehovah's Witnesses, they say, "Oh no, Jesus didn't call himself God. He said that I and the Father are one in purpose." No, that word is not for purpose. He said that they are heis, that they are singular, one, without distinction. Jesus and the Father are one being, not two separate beings. They're two separate persons. The Father, Son, and Spirit are three persons, one eternal being of God. All of them are Yahweh. The Father is Yahweh. The Son is Yahweh, and the Spirit is Yahweh. On top of this, they don't teach that we are saved by grace alone, through faith alone, in Christ alone, which is exactly what all of the apostles taught, which is what Jesus himself taught, and that is the only gospel that exists. If you look at Galatians 1, verse 8, Paul says that if I or an angel from heaven were to come back to you with any other gospel other than the one that you've received, let him be anathema, which means let him be damned forever by God for teaching you a false gospel. Paul goes on in chapter 2, warning about pseudadelphos, which means false brothers. They were people pretending to be Christians while trying to lead people astray from the actual gospel. That's where Galatians 2:16, Paul reiterates it very clearly, and he says, "Know that a person is not justified by the works of the law, but by faith in Jesus Christ." So we too have to put our faith in Christ Jesus, that we might be justified by faith in Christ and not by the works of the law, because by the works of the law, no one will be justified. But the Jehovah's Witnesses teach, yeah, it is based on the law. It is based on you doing specific works. It is not by grace alone, through faith alone. So they have a false gospel and they have a false Jesus. Islam has a false Jesus. Buddhism has a false Jesus. Hinduism has a false Jesus. Roman Catholicism has a false Jesus. Mormonism has a false Jesus. I can say that they're false because the Bible declares Jesus to be very specific and very unique. And if you alter his unchangeable attributes, then that is going to create a different Jesus. If someone were to describe Taco Talks as being a blonde girl who talks about One Direction all day long, is that actually accurately going to be describing me? No. In the same way, you can't possibly claim, "Oh yeah, we believe in Jesus," and claim that he was Michael the Archangel, or claim some other awful heresy about him, something that's blasphemous and something that leads exclusively to hell. You cannot make that claim. That is a really bad thing. It is very dangerous. So if you find yourself stuck in a cult, I want you to actually just examine the Bible. Compare it to what you've been taught, and just go off the Bible by itself without having anyone whispering in your ear, anyone leaning over your shoulder. Just get a real Bible, NASB 2020, LSB, even if you want to go with the King James. Doesn't matter, as long as you get a real translation. The New World Translation is not a real translation. It is a rewrite where they change multiple things in order to try to change and alter the divinity of Christ as it is obviously clearly declared. I hope that makes sense. Let me know what's next. Follow me on X. God bless.